need inspiration, motivation, or hope? Do you let fear hold you back? Sometimes you feel lost or just stuck in your own thoughts, and you want a clear path to give you results. Then, my friend, you are in the right place. My name is Rachel Best, and I am your host of How to Make a Mark in the World, Finding Your Signature. Go ahead and grab a pen and paper because you're going to want to take notes. Oh gosh, my apologies, going crazy here. So anyways, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. Today we have a special guest, Tricia. Her and I got the opportunity to meet a couple months ago, and we were speaking on the same platform somewhere, and we just connected, and we have so many things in common. And we connected last week, and I was like, or a couple weeks ago actually now, and I was like, oh my gosh, you have to be on my podcast because I think that you would just share so much value with the things that you teach, and so that is why you are here today. So go ahead and share with us who you are and how are you making your mark in the world.
Rachel, thank you so much for inviting me on your podcast and your platform, because again, we were meant for definitely a bigger and greater purpose. My name is Tricia Daniel, and I am a financial empowerment speaker because I love to empower other women about their finances. I'm a third generation voice about financial literacy and financial clarity. Because while I'm an MBA with over 25 years experience in finance and accounting, I've also been a single mother who started over not once, but twice. I've also been that executive who's been laid off with no backup plan and no savings. And I've also been a woman who's come out of debt from 3 separate life events. So I feel like it's important in making a mark on the world that we share those things in our lives that aren't so pretty, that have filled our lives full of heartache and pain. Now, I've been grateful because I'm third generation that my parents were able to teach me about finances since the age of 3. So I started combining that teaching with my professional experience to be able to get up on my own 2 feet each and every time life would, throw me that curveball, like so many of you have got their curveballs that thrown into your life. But however, the shame in my financial story, it always held me back. I wasn't going to share with anybody. I've been out of debt, or I was laid off, or I started over twice with 2 beautiful sons until April 2021, when my mother, she fell, severely bruising her knee. We didn't think anything of it until 3 weeks later, when we found ourselves by her hospital bedside. She was sedated, on oxygen, and unable to speak. We were floored that we were never going to hear her voice again. And so I don't know if you've ever experienced that in your own lives, where all of a sudden, just suddenly you're looking at somebody like, wait, I'm never going to hear their voice again. Until on her last day, a nurse came in and removed the oxygen from my mom's nose. And her eyes slowly began to open. And eventually she started struggling to speak. And she looked over at me at one point and she asked the word, promise. And I was like, yes, Mom, I promise. I didn't really know exactly what she was asking me, but then I actually knew what she did mean, because my mom was a woman who allowed shame in her own life hold her back. She always said someday she was going to write a book about the incredible joint custody childhood I grew up in. Someday she was going to empower other women with her faith. And she always said someday, someday, someday. And on that Friday evening, her worst voice and her words were gone. I mean, she no longer had her someday to make an impact, to make that change in the world. And that's when I realized I don't have someday either, that my someday is today, to go out and share with other women how they too can overcome that past financial shame in their lives and stand on their own 2 feet also. And that is why I started speaking, coming out from behind my computer screen. I'm a numbers nerd. I love the comfort of my computer screen and my Excel spreadsheets. But I've come out from behind that to start speaking to other women who maybe just like me, or in other situations where they have started over also, to get those tools so they can start overcoming things in their own lives also.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And there's so many times that
there are so many people that they're like, oh, someday or tomorrow, right?
Mhm.
Tomorrow. And then tomorrow comes and goes, and that someday comes and goes. And then, unfortunately, like your mother, that, that someday, she never got that someday. And so what an inspiration that she is to you, that you, instead of saying, well, someday I'll do this or that, like you are taking the things that God has gifted you, and you are sharing, overcoming. So tell us, how did you overcome? Because yes, shame and money, like that can be a huge impact. So I know
Mhm.
I've been there. So can you share with us a little bit about your journey and how to help people get through that?
Yes, it really starts with, I mean, I grew up in a joint custody childhood. And so I've always been empowered gratefully by 4 different parents who taught me 4 different things.
Mm.
But the greatest part about it is I knew, like, in every different situation in life, since they were so different, I would joke around that my stepfather taught me how to camp out in the woods. He was Native American. I just loved how he teach me so much about the earth and nature. But then my father would teach me how to camp out in the Hiltons as a financial planner. And then my mother would teach me how to go be really thrifty and shop at the thrift stores. When my stepfather taught me how to be thrifty at Neiman Marcus. I just had different places in life, but from that, I was able to understand whatever different place in life I was in at the time, whether starting over after a divorce,
Mm.
starting over the second time with my youngest son when he was only 1, helping out with my oldest son is autistic and being able to teach him how to speak. And then, from all those different things I knew in life, no matter what place I was in, where I wanted to be. And it was going to take me standing back up and go, okay, who am I? This
Mm.
doesn't define me. So
Mhm.
one, starting with the part, who was I created to be?
Mm.
What is that gift that's inside me that's just waiting to burst out, that's waiting to multiply? Because I understood that money was just a resource. It didn't define who I was. It was just a resource. And we can always make more money, but we can never get back more time.
Mm.
And that's where I didn't want to waste time sitting in the wallow and the shame of, waiting for to get my someone to come save me. I knew I could stand on my own 2 feet because gratefully, again, all 4 parents empowered me to be able to stand up. And because my father started teaching me about money since the age of 3, I was like, we wiped clean every time. All right, here's where we're going to start building. And I always call it rebuilding. I've had some words spoken over me that I'm the rebuilder of financial ruins because I have rebuilt from financial ruins so many times. But it starts at that place of just starting. And I think
Mm.
that's so important for other people is just knowing, okay, I can start again. I can do this. And I think by us sharing, everyone sharing their story of how they started and they rebuilt. There's so many people in history that have done that they know that they can do it too, and they're not alone.
Mhm. That's so good that you say just start. And
Mhm.
I'm finding, like, even some of the people that we see on big platforms. I was actually on a mastermind a couple weeks ago, and the gentleman shared that, he was, trying to make a business. And he ended up at the end of that year. This has been several years ago now, but this was his beginning, right? This is his humble beginning, and he had 17 cents in his pocket. That was it. He had 17 cents in his pocket, and he decided that next year that if you're on the ground, there's nowhere else except for up. Like, you can only look up. And so he had 17 cents in his pocket, and a year later he was a millionaire.
Mhm.
And I keep finding so many times that people that are very successful and that are making huge impact in the world are people that they know what it's like for the humble beginnings. They know what it's like to start over. They know what it's like to be downright just broke. And
Mhm.
so, I love how you say, just start. So when you say just start, what do you encourage people to do to just start? What does that look like for people?
For me, because yeah, I have like after my mother passed away, I was kind of I've downloaded a 4-step process, and that's why I have a network called Starting Over Wealth Network, and that spells out sown, so that we all be sown back into the earth to thrive again. Because I think that's super important. So whenever I say start, the biggest thing is getting back to understanding who you are with money in the first place.
Mm.
So I walk people usually back through understanding what is their money identity. Who am I with money? And most of our identity with money goes back to our childhood before the age of 7. For any of you listeners that have done inner child work, relate that back to money. And so basically inner child work is going back to the before the age of 7, when most of us form our habits and who we are. What is your first money memory? Did you hear your parents fight about money? Did you see a single parent struggle with money? Or was money something that was just freely all the way around you, so you never worried about it? So a lot of our habits are formed back then. And so it's understanding first, who am I with money, and really understanding your money identity, who you are at your core. Your money personality, what I like to think of as like a tree. Your money personality is kind of like your leaves, all the different colors and how they're pretty. Are you a spender? Are you a saver? Are you a giver? And just really understanding, how do I operate with money? Just like you said the millionaire was 16 cents, 17 cents in their pocket. They had to get back to, okay, no, wait, this doesn't define me how much is in my pocket. That's not who I am. This is who I am. I am a spender. I'm a saver. I invest. This is what I do. I can reproduce this 16 cents with the skills that I have with who I am. So for me, the biggest piece with just starting is knowing who you are and your abilities, your skills. What can you multiply? We were each given a specific skill and ability that is meant to be our bearing seed, a seed that's meant to multiply. So, are you skilled with something artistic? For me, Excel spreadsheets. Are you as someone who can use their voice and be able to multiply things through their voice? Actors, they're able to go out and act and produce millions of dollars from movies. We each have a skill within us that's able to multiply and make us money. So for me, that is the biggest piece in just starting, is knowing who you are with money, but then also who you are and meant to being able to multiply and give your gift to the world.
That's really good. That's really good. I've never heard it said that way. So I wrote that down. That's very powerful to, who am I with money? And I study the mind and how, our habits and things like that. And so, yes, the 0 to 7, like it's crazy. It's crazy that we even I'm 44 years old, and that, the things that we do is from so many years ago, and it's just crazy to even think about. And that's why I dug into the mind, is because I kept finding myself stuck in different situations, in finances, in relationships, and things like that. And so that's why I got on this deep dive of, okay, there has to be a reason why, God, why do I keep getting stuck in these things? And so, it's I think a lot of people, and I didn't know that until 5 years ago, Trish, that I did not know that until 5 years ago, that there's a reason. The reason why we keep getting stuck is all from when we were 0 to 7 years
Oh,
old.
I completely agree. I used to for me as a protection method, I used to, stuff everything down.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a confessed stuffer. You
Mm-hmm.
probably love the psychology. Completely stuff everything down. And so I had to dig deep. I had to dig real deep. So for me, and I'm just turned 50, it has been a healing journey for myself. I've just built up, for 25 years. I've been in public accounting and a corporate executive. I was supposed to be a face. My identity was in my title. What did
Mm-hmm.
I do? That's where my identity lied. And so with life starting over and over and over again, I was like, okay, there's there's something bigger here, that I had to do my own healing journey. And so for a lot of
Mm-hmm.
what I speak about now is after I went through my own healing journey and have to get back to my starting point, and who did God call me to be? What are my gifts? I'm not just my title,
Mm-hmm.
that I am more than that. Who am I? And I have to say I love affirmations, and I have to say I am, and have to remember who I was called to be. So I thought you might get a love for that inner child work
Yeah.
piece. But it is like for me, having 4 parents, I had to dive really deep because I have some different pieces and such a different dynamic financial
Mhm.
background growing in two different socioeconomical households. Since such an early age, I had to really dig deep. So a lot of us that have stuffed things down or pushed things aside or have never thought about it, I urge you again. It just in my middle 40s that I start really diving in and realizing, wow, wait a second, who was I created to be? And I'm more than just my executive title or degrees on my wall.
Mhm. Yeah. That's so true. I actually, when I started learning about my identity, again, I was saved for like, oh my gosh, like 10 years and I still didn't understand my identity and who I was. I actually watched a movie, Overcomer. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie. But Overcomer was a great movie that really started me to, and it was really, God really like the piece about the mind and 0 to 7 and also the identity. He started, it was simultaneously like at the same time when I started learning both of those things. And so like, and he has just married them together over the last 5 years. And, knowing our identity and whose we are. And like you said, like the whole, how to make a mark in the world, find your signature, our signatures are all different. And to, unpack, that backpack, you have that backpack and to just take it and unpack all of these things. And like you said, you had 4 different people influencing you and sharing with you, different things about money. And so you had a lot of different money concepts. And so you had to just like unpack that and like you said, heal that and really step into your identity of who did God create you to be? And it's not your title. Like if we take
Yeah.
all the stuff away, we take being a mom, a wife, a daughter, your business, whatever it is, when we take all of these titles away, take all these hats off, who are we at the end of the day? Who are we? And so when we really step into our identity and who God has created us to be, then everything changes.
Oh,
Everything
completely
changes.
changes. And I did a lot of identity work on that once I discovered there's an amazing pastor. His name is Pastor Clyde Lewis, and
Mhm.
he speaks on identity work. And so I worked with him one on one for an extended period of time because I knew it was so important to understand that for myself and to work with somebody else and really dive in that deep. And it has changed everything. But then it also allows you to start thinking about your own skill, your own abilities, whether you're in finance or, as a public speaker or in psychology, whatever your field is,
Mhm.
understanding your identity in that field and where's your voice in that field, where's your expertise in that field and your true identity in helping other people and what you were created to do.
Mhm. Yeah, that's so true. That's true. And earlier you mentioned about like money defining because I know I've had to deal with this in my life is that, like I put my self-worth in how much I had in the bank. And that I had to really work through that I'm valuable even no matter what my bank account says, I'm still valuable because I used to be like, well, what can I possibly share with anybody? Like, what value do I possibly bring to anybody? Because, these people have way more money than I do. So I had to really, so have you ever dealt with that? Or how do you
Oh yeah, well, especially being
say
in
about that?
finance. Yeah,
What's that?
especially being in finance and public
Mhm.
accounting, when the fact that when I was wiped clean or, deep in debt from, 3 different events. I mean, after, divorce and starting over a second time, medical debt, there's all these different things in my life, and all of a sudden, wait, I'm I'm not supposed to be that. I'm supposed to be this, this executive who knows all these things.
Mhm.
But life still happens. Life still throws curveballs. Like right now, this very moment, I was remarried after 15 years of divorce. Just last summer, I blended a family of 6 amazing boys. And 1 month after the wedding, my new husband injured his spine,
Mhm.
lost his job. And sadly, we went through an 8 month process of waiting for spinal surgery, having the recovery, and all of a sudden, me becoming the sole income. And then, and not only are you supporting now all these children and extra vehicles and gas and food, but you're also incurring medical bills and medical debt. And then we finally got him back to work part-time. And this summer, once again, his spine and his neck above another fusion went out.
Oh,
So
wow.
he has been confined to home.
Wow.
So there's things in life that happen that we are not prepared for that are going to come into your life. But a lot of us just think that everything is going to be okay for today and for someday. We feel like life's never going to happen, never going to throw us a curveball. So I went through a lot of it because of the work I have done, the healing work I have done. I knew that I was placed in this moment in time for a reason.
Mm.
I was meant to finally, after 15 years, find this amazing man, these beautiful boys, even though 1 month after everything, suddenly turned, suddenly changed, I was meant to be there. But it allowed me also to speak more on this is why we are station prepared. This is why
Mm.
sometimes God only gives us a little so that we can be ready for a lot. Can we be better stewards of what we have? Because one of the greatest questions I love to ask after I take people through that starting point is how much is enough? How much is truly enough? We're so defined with how much is in our bank account, like you're mentioning, but how much is truly enough? Because sometimes people may have millions of dollars, but it's still not enough. It's still not feeding who they're called to be. It's
Mhm.
just a number. Money's just a resource.
Mhm.
So again, how much is enough? So if life throws you a curveball, you may feel, hey, I'm fine. I can pay for that. Well, are you sure? Because again, life still happens. There's, so many things. A lot of people think that, oh, I can get, you know, uh, workers' compensation or I can get unemployment. No, unemployment's for people that can go back to work.
Mm.
So security disability, that's over a 6-month process with only 32% of people actually, being approved. You
Wow.
can't depend on other systems to help you.
Mhm.
You have to have your own disability insurance, which I used to think is, I had this conversation just the other day with a woman who's been in the business for 40 years saying, and her husband had cancer. Suddenly her husband had cancer and she was supporting 2 young daughters. And they had just let go of their disability policy thinking, "Oh, he's not traveling anymore, it'll be just fine." And then a few months later, he gets cancer, and suddenly she's supporting the whole entire family. So we don't think about these things we need to have in place,
Mhm.
these safeguards that are available for us to put in place because we think we still have someday, and we
Mhm.
don't understand what we need today and the safeguards and structure foundation to be able to build this amazing empire, these beautiful homes, these things that we want to build, but we have to prepare our foundation first and design it first because again, how much is truly enough for the things you want to create, but making sure you build it on a firm foundation. Because as I found, things can come and blow. Just like the Three Little Pigs, if who built their house with sticks and hay and brick, a lot of times we build these amazing things. They may look beautiful, but if a wind comes, life changes. Is it going to blow it over? Making
Mhm.
sure we have built these things correctly and designed these things correctly and have reinforced them. So when life does happen, we're ready.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good to just have that solid foundation.
Mhm.
I mean, if I mean, even it's in the Bible, right? Like you have to
Yes.
have a
Yeah.
foundation.
How can you build a tower? How can you build a tower if you don't know like your cost? Because you're going to look like a
Right,
fool,
right.
when it's unfinished. Because every time I drive past one of those strip centers that have grass overgrown and there's a chain link fence and because you can see, okay, they didn't prepare for some sudden change that happened. There's a
Mhm.
reason that building's unfinished.
Mhm.
And so for a lot of us, we don't have the things in place. We're not prepared to handle the little we have for these big, amazing dreams that we've got coming, but we've got to be able to be better stewards with just the 16 cents that are in our pocket.
Yeah, yeah. So when you work with your clients, like kind of can you share with us like, some tips or like how do you work with them? How do you give the audience some things that they could do today if they're listening and they're like, "Oh my gosh, like she's speaking to me right now. How do I get started? What do I do? What are some things? What are some tangible things they can start doing now?" And again, just how do you work with your clients?
I love to bring it back to shapes and to drawing. All of us are visual. All of us
Mhm.
like to see things. And when I was 3 years old, my dad would always sit down at breakfast. Again, my parents were divorced. We'd have breakfast every single Saturday. My dad would start to pull out a napkin, ask the waitress for a pen, and he'd begin to draw because he knew at age 3 I could learn through shapes. And so this is how I
Mhm.
like to teach with everybody that again, finance doesn't have to be scary. So we just talked about, the seed, the trees, identifying who you are with money. And I think this is a very important place to start. But next, I want you to, draw out a triangle. And in almost all finance world, we talk about Maslow's hierarchy of need. So I don't know if obviously familiar with that. At first, drawing your triangle and what's at the base. What are your needs? Those things you need, your food, clothing, shelter. And then working your way up to your desires, your wants, and what's your ultimate goal. And being able to draw it out as a triangle in different levels so you can see visually where are you wanting to go? What's that ultimate thing you want to achieve? But starting off with the basics. And whenever you see that, that's a great way to build a budget. And again, I don't like the word budget. I really don't. I like to call it a plan for abundance. Budget
Oh, I
seems,
like it. I like
budget
it.
seems so restricting. It just really does seem restricting. So
Mhm.
I like to call it your plan for abundance. Like what you really want to achieve. Because Maslow's hierarchy of need, the very top triangle is called self-actualization. Where do you see yourself? What's that ultimate goal, that ultimate dream? And being able to get there. And so just being able to draw out a triangle, and again, nothing technical or anything like that. Just again, draw. And a great thing is that you can do this with your kids. You can do this with your kids to be able to start teaching them slow money concepts or your spouse. I know for a lot of people, it is so hard to talk to our spouses about money.
Mhm.
Being able to draw it out, okay, this is what takes care of the basics, and being able just to write it out, draw it out, get color pencils, markers, make it fun. But another thing I love to draw is a circle. And it
Mhm.
goes back to that question, how much is enough? Because for most of us, that little that we have or the great that we have, everything comes into a circle. This is your bucket. This is where everything lands. And
Mm.
how much, do you have to live on? How much then, part of the circle, if you put it into 4 different sections, how much do you have to live on? How much do you owe? How much do you have to give? And how much do you want to grow? And then
Mm.
for a lot of people, it's not equal. I mean, you don't have a circle that's equal into sections. Sometimes we have a lot that we're living on and a lot that we owe, and we give this much to giving and this much to investing and growing. And even if you reallocated that and being able to live on less, to be able to pay down more that you owe, or be able to give more, be able to grow more, it's always going to come back to a circle, whether it's 16 cents or whether it's $1 million. And for a lot of people, they get all of a sudden maybe an influx. And, just like the millionaire you talked about, all of a sudden he has $1 million. He still has to sit down with it. And how much is he going to live on? Because if he lives on less and he owes less, he can be able to give more and he can be able to grow and invest more.
Mhm.
So being able to draw it in a circle and see it visual, just get that piece of paper and draw it out. And so you have a visual piece of your dream that doesn't seem so overwhelming. It's not a spreadsheet. It's not a big old board meeting packet. It's something simple that everyone can comprehend, from yourself, from your children, to your spouse, to your team, in your own business, being able to draw out, this is where we're going. This is what we're going to do. We're going to take our circle from looking like this, where we're just making and meeting our goals, to we're going to grow to this, and being able to visually show them where God is taking your business, your life.
Mhm.
But just draw it out into shapes. And that's why I love to be able to show people and make it seem possible.
That's so good. I've never heard it done that way. And so I'm writing as you're talking. And that is to have a triangle and a circle and to break it down. Yeah, I've never, it's always been on a, what do you spend your money on? Where does it
Oh,
all go? You
and that's the
fill
worst part. People are always like, yeah, like, well, we hand these. I work with a lot of single moms groups,
Mhm.
since I have been a single mother and I can identify with them. And they're like, well, we give them these spreadsheets and they won't fill them out. And I'm like, no, you're not going to fill them out. They're looking
So
at you
they're
like, we
boring.
don't have anything to fill out. We listen, everything's gone. We're negative every month. Like,
Right.
I don't want to fill that out. But
Right.
when you give them this is my plan for abundance. This is my dreams. This is where I'm going to go. I'm going to take that 16 cents. I'm going to use my gifts. I can be able to multiply it. and be able to make it grow. That's what to me, like, wealth. One of my mentors, her name's Patrice Washington. She always speaks from stage about how wealth is truly that 12th century definition of wealth, the overall state of well-being. If you really go back into history and research the meanings of and the breakdown of wealth, it's the overall state of well-being. There's more to wealth than just our money. And I always like to break it down into six different parts. It's, W's for wisdom, being able to learn and know and grow things. And then E is really looking at your earnings, not just the paycheck that comes in and it gets to be negative, looking at different ways of how you earn and bring money in. And then A is for assurance, rebuilding that confidence that probably got lost along the way when life started shifting and throwing curveballs at you. And L, learning how to love yourself again, and not feeding I used to feed my self needs with shoes. I had a shoe closet full of shoes after my first divorce because I started substituting it instead of falling back in love with myself and learning how to love others and love God and love all these things in my life. And then, for the fifth one, looking at trust, being able to trust yourself with a little so you can be trusted with a lot, and looking at stewardship. And the last piece for me of wealth is health. I've gone through fatigue. I've gone through where my face actually paralyzed at one point. And then right now for my husband, going through these spinal issues, health is being able to treasure the thing that we have so we can go out and produce more and give more and grow more. And I just think that wealth is over encompassing and encompassing everything. And so when you're giving people a spreadsheet, it's hard to see overall wealth when you're looking at a spreadsheet and trying to fill out numbers, and it's not exciting. So
Right.
I love to be able to put things, just more into shapes and being able to see yourself and everything you embody and the different shapes we have around the world.
Yeah, that's great. Like that is so good. I have so many notes here. Just I love how you broke down the wealth, like the acronym of wealth. Like you just have a way to share to make people to make it more fun, to make people think about it, to make people want to do it. Like I really want to sit down and do this now because I'm like, oh my gosh, like I love how she just broke that down. And I'm a huge dreamer, a huge visionary, like a huge goal setter. And so when you're talking about doing shapes and writing down things and having the plan of abundance and using my gifts to multiply that, because there's so much power in having it wrote down and having a visual. And because if we have it wrote down and we can see it, then we can start working towards that rather than just flying by the seat of their pants. And so which I'm kind of a flying by the seat of a kind of
But
pants.
we've all been there. That's the thing too, is I've been there. And again, I've done finances, accounting for, 25 years. And so it was always so easier just to put it in there. But I was still, again, like the janitor has the dirtiest closet. I could do all your stuff all day long. When it came time to mine, I'm like, I'm tired. We're just gonna fly by. But yeah, I had to go back to, again, my before age of 7, where my dad would draw. So I really attribute this back to my father, being a financial planner, and being in finance, my grandfather in finance, of being able just to talk in these easier terms that everybody understands and everyone can sit down and everyone can draw. But that's how my dad would literally lead business meetings with other people, a napkin and a pen, sitting down at
Wow.
a meal and just drawing it out. Makes it so
Wow.
much easier.
Yeah, yeah, and sometimes, especially in businesses like that, sometimes like it's so like I've talked to financial planners and it's just so high up here, and I'm like, I don't even know the words you're saying to me right now. Can you like bring it down a little bit? Obviously they want to be smart, and I think they are smart, but sometimes when there's people like me that's not my profession, that's not my skill, that's not what I do. So you have to like bring it down, and that's what I've learned with people, that we really have to just I always think of my little boy, like I have to I can use all these big fancy words, but if it goes over people's heads, then it doesn't really matter what
No.
words you use. So I always think about like, when I'm talking to somebody, to slow it down and talk to them as if I'm talking to my 7-year-old, because then because basically like that's how people need to be able to understand. And that's, I know that's for me too, you know. So again, like if we're saying all these big crazy words and people are like, yeah, I really don't know what that
Yeah,
means.
no, and it's not gonna do anything. It's just gonna fly over their head and they're gonna
Yeah,
go on their way. I mean, I do the
thank you,
same
Dad.
thing. I mean, you're gonna start talking to me about, I mean, price, construction, or there's so many other things you can, and I'm like, okay. So it's this way, I think when we talk and we're able to show a mutual respect,
Mm-hmm,
mutual
mm-hmm,
respect, like this is your gift, this is my gift. Let's share our gifts and bring it together and being able to make this plan for you, this plan for abundance for you. And that's why I think for me is that was the biggest aha moment of coming out from behind like the shame of my financial
mm-hmm,
journey, knowing that I've had people say, "Oh my gosh, you just put that in simple terms," because I love speaking simple terms. And also knowing, with my older son being autistic, he didn't talk to the age of 6.
wow.
I talked to him through pictures. I talked to
Mm-hmm,
him through shapes. I used to take pictures of his favorite places and would laminate them and be able to show him, "Hey, this is where we're going," through pictures. And then he could show me back, "This is where I want to go," through
hmm,
pictures. And so we spoke a lot without speaking any words.
mm-hmm,
And I just feel that's super important. And I believe that that is my gift that God gave me, is being able to speak this in a little bit terms, knowing again, I've been and raised around all the financial terms. I've led board meetings. I can do all those things. I've gone to New York City and led road shows. However,
right.
what's important is that all the rest of us being able to have conversations and know how much is enough to achieve what we are here on earth to achieve.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. I love that. Well, you definitely have a gift and you definitely share in such a way that I've never heard it said before. And so I know in our previous conversations and just this conversation today that you definitely bring a different light to the finance world. And also I love how you have a biblical background with it too, that you really, put the scriptures and how you just implement God into that, because I think that that's really really important. That's something that's really important to me, and that's something that I haven't found. And so I really value that we have crossed paths so that I can learn things from you. So tell us if people want to get a hold of you, how do they get a hold of you first?
I love two different ways. So please come and visit me. First, Instagram. Let's still love Instagram. It's Tricia Daniel, TRICIA DANIEL, and then MBA. Come find me there. And then also, I'm actually getting ready to release an ebook that breaks down that wealth, each
Hmm.
piece, and also biblically putting in the verses and different action steps so they can also get started. It is in the works, and it should hopefully be released in here in the next couple of weeks. If you will visit me at www.tricia Daniel.com and drop me a note in there, fill out the contact form, and then I can get that ebook right to you.
That's awesome. Well, I know I'm going to be signing up because I'm excited to get that and learn and start implementing. And one last thing before we hop off of here, what is next for, my goodness, we're what, 2 weeks into 2024 already? What is next for 2024? What is your goal for 2024?
2024, my biggest goal is to really help people with their money mindset strategy. And I call it wealth shifting, having a
Mm,
wealth shifting mindset. And so it is a course that I have been working on for the last 6 months, that is about to be released. There's a little bit, if you go again to those connections, you're going to see the links in there. And so I am super excited to get that released where it encompasses that overall wealth, state of well-being, and shifting our mindsets. So we can take that 16 cents and make it multiply and use it for what we were meant to do with and what God intended for us to do with his money. And so I'm super excited to release that wealth shifting course. And then obviously speaking, I am just super excited just to see the growth, and speak on more stages, be able to share, God's word on finances and how he intended for us to be.
I love it. I love it. Well, I thank you so much for being on here today. You shared so much to so many. I have so many nuggets and notes that I'm definitely going to go back and relook at and just do those things and start teaching my son too, because I definitely, I have older kids, and I've they're out of the house and doing their thing now, but I still have him, and so being able to teach him those money things like you just shared. So I so appreciate you for being here today. You are definitely making your mark in the world, and I look forward to seeing your wealth ebook and then also your course. And I look forward to seeing what God does next in your life. So until next week, my friends, bye-bye. This is your host, Rachel Bess, and I hope you loved the show. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel, as well as share with a friend. If you would like, you can follow me on Instagram as well as Facebook under Rachel Best. You can also find